What is up, everybody? Welcome to Pub Sports Radio and welcome to Stat Diggers for UFC Kansas City. We have a late night special episode here on a Monday. We took the Sunday off there, but we are back and we are looking forward to talk about this card, UFC Kansas City, a very good fight night card. I noticed that the UFC is going out there and really putting together some really good cards outside of the Apex, and this is one of them. I think it's a solid overall card. A few fights that I could care less about, but yeah, overall, it's a really good card. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this card, and are you looking forward to it?
I'm looking forward to it a lot. I think there are some really fun fights on this card. The debut of Gaston Bolaños is going to be a really fun one to watch. Bruna Brazil and Denise Gomez is going to be a great fight. We got Daniel Zellhuber, who's got a lot to prove after that bed-shitting performance that he put on the last time out. We got Jillian Robertson making her 115-pound debut. We got Tanner Boser making his 205-pound debut. And we got somebody else making their 205-pound debut. The blown-up former welterweight, Zach Cummings. Royval Nicolau is going to be fun. We got Bill Algeo on this card. We got Munhoz versus Gutiérrez. Barboza versus Billy Quarantillo is going to be absolute fire. And then Max Holloway against Allen. It's a really fun card. I can't wait to break it down with you in the chat. Thank all of you guys for joining us here on a Monday night, not at the usual time for us, but you are going to get the usual quality content that you always get from Brady and I when we break these fights down here on Pub Sports Radio on Stat Diggers.
Yes, sir. Took all Sunday off, enjoyed time with the family, woke up really early today and just taped fights all day. And we also did a show earlier as well. So it's been a very long day. I'm a little bit tired, but I'm gonna get through it here. I do want to do a quick recap of the card 2 nights ago. Somebody was really upset that we forgot to recap. He was like, "This is why we never watch your show. You never recap." First of all, we always recap, and second of all, that card was like 2 weeks ago, so we didn't even bother. But yeah, quick recap for me, Weezy. This night freaking hurt me. Snapped a 5-fight winning streak, and I feel like I should not have had a losing night last night. So I'll go over the wins first. I had Kevin Holland inside the distance, half a unit plus 148. That was nice. Steve Garcia, the finish only, half a unit plus 195. Gave me a scare in the first round, but man, great performance by Steve Garcia. The guy loves getting dropped, but hey, came back and got that second round finish. And then I had Joe Pyfer wins by first round knockout, half a unit plus 290. And these are the losses. My worst bet of the night was probably Ignacio Bahamondes inside the distance. Thought there would be a lot more action. Just looked like Trey Ogden showed up, and not actually sure what his plan was there, but nothing really happened in that fight. But he kicked off the night with the under 2.5 in the Amarim fight. That was very close, I thought, on both sides. I thought Amarim was really close to getting that first round submission like 3 times. It was super deep choke. But yes, Sam Hughes was able to get out of it. And then I thought maybe Sam Hughes would be able to take over and get the finish late. Just due to the fact Amarim looked like she had nothing left after 5 minutes. Looked like she's never been hit in the face before. But yeah, Sam Hughes wasn't able to get the finish. So that one hurt. This one probably hurt the most. Michelle Watterson, half a unit plus 150. Even beat some line movement on that one. I thought that Watterson won the first 4 minutes and 55 seconds of the first. Panera won those last 5 seconds. I thought that 5 seconds probably swayed the judges. Panera won the second, and then Watterson won the third. Thought it was a pretty clear 29-28, but the judges disagreed. That one hurt. Another one that hurt, I had the fight to end in split decision in the Gastelum Curtis fight, plus 450. That would have been a huge hit. Obviously, Gastelum won the first round, Curtis won the third, all came down to the second, and that headed clash, I think, really sealed that for the judges there, 29-28. No split. I'm done betting split props. Like, if that's not a split decision, I don't know what is. And the other one was Raul Rosas Jr. Rodriguez fight to end by submission. Rosas Jr. had a bunch of opportunities early, and I thought Rodriguez would have some opportunities late, but didn't really seem to go for it. So less than a unit loss, like it's barely a loss, but man, I felt like a couple of these. Like if the Amarim fight finished, winning night. If Watterson cashed, winning night. If the Curtis fight was a split, winning night. So that nights like those probably hurt me the most, but it is what it is. Ready to get back in the win column this week. Weezy, I heard you came out with a winning night on a pretty tough card. So congrats to you. And you want to talk about that a little bit? I know you had most of your action canceled after the start time, but a winning night is a winning night.
Dude, for the, and like I every bet that I've ever made that was canceled would have cashed 100%, so it
Yeah. Oh
always
yeah.
hurts whenever they cancel my bets, dude. It's just money that you're stealing from me. But yeah, dude, up 0.67 units. They're not gonna put me on the Mount Rushmore of MMA gamblers for this performance. But overall, I thought the reads were pretty good. I had Amarim to win inside the distance, lost the unit on that. Like we said, she got close there in the first, but then completely gassed out. Could have been an adrenaline dump. It also could have been the fact that, she just isn't a well-conditioned grappler. But either way, it didn't happen. And then I was talking all week about how Adrian Yannis had fought a bunch of candy asses and that he
Same.
was a fraud, and that there was a huge step up in competition. So I bet Font to win by decision.
Yeah.
So that didn't come out for me. That was a plus 275 bet for a half unit that did not cash. I had a 1.25 unit parlay on Gastelum Curtis over 2.5 rounds, and the other leg was canceled because the Williams fight didn't happen. So cashed a little bit there, and then I had one unit on the Christian Rodriguez money line,
Nice
but
bet.
I got it at about the worst possible price at plus 160. I knew I was going to bet him in that fight. I knew that the hype on Rosas was overblown, and Christian really kind of gave him, a vet lesson there. Even though he's not that much more of a vet than Raul, at least he's like 6 years older. So up 0.67 units. Wish I had just bet the Font money line instead of the decision prop. It would have been a much better day. And if Chase Sherman would have shown up for his ass whooping, it would have been a much better day for me. But either way, yeah, we'll take it. We'll move on to this next one. I've already got some bets on this next card, and I'm finding other spots that are starting to stick out as the research goes further and further.
Yeah, I already have 4 bets on this card, 4 money lines, which is not really like me, but I'm liking some money lines this week. It doesn't look like there's going to be a lot of violence this week. It wasn't much last week as well, so hoping for some violence maybe next week. But this week, we talked about it earlier, just a lot of overs, and I think a lot of money lines are probably the way to go here. I do want to shout out the chat before we get started. We got Mushroom, first one in here. We got Kiwi, Victor DeJesus. We got Kiwi with a $20 dono. Appreciate you, Kiwi. It does mean a lot here at Pub Sports Radio. Appreciate that a ton. We got Tony in the chat as well. See what else we got in here. GMC hanging out. We got Super. We got Cole. We got Fight Club. We got Devin. What is up, everybody? All right. Let us get into it, Weezy, and let us start with the first fight of the night. And we got Lucy Pudilova going against Jocelyn Edwards. So Lucy Pudilova, 28 years old, 5'8", with a 67-inch reach, going against Jocelyn Edwards, 27 years old, 5'8", with a 70-inch reach. Edwards 1 year younger. It's going to be Edwards with a 3-inch reach advantage, same height there at 5'8". We have Jocelyn Edwards 3-2 in her last 5 fights, a decision win against Yanan Wu, a decision loss against Carol Hoza, a decision loss against Jessica Rose Clark, a decision win against Ramona Pascual, and then a decision win against Jian Kim. As far as Lucy Pudilova, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She had a stint in the UFC. It didn't go too well. She got cut. She took some fights outside the UFC, went on a nice little win streak there, and she is back. And she came back against Yanan Wu and went out there and looked probably the best she's ever had in that matchup. She was able to take down Yanan Wu, and she was able to finish her in the second round, showed very vicious ground and pound as well. And first glance, Weezy, I look at this fight and I'm like, okay, Jocelyn Edwards, terrible takedown defense and get-up game. Yes, it looked good against Ramona Pascual, but that's Ramona Pascual. We did see Rose Clark take her down multiple times. Carol Hoza, same thing. And I thought, yeah, Lucy Pudilova should go in there and take this fight down to the mat. Easy work. I don't know. I just have a bad feeling about this fight, and rightfully so. I rightfully should have a bad feeling about this fight. I'm not going to be betting on this fight. I guess I leaned Pudilova just because I think she's going to go out there and use the same game plan as last time, but I'm not sure if it's going to be that easy. 2 questions, Weezy. Is Yanan Wu affiliated with the Wu-Tang Clan? And then secondly, what are your thoughts on this fight?
Yeah, well, we broke that news right here on Stat Diggers on Pub Sports Radio, which is why this show is a must-watch every single week. She is not affiliated with the Wu-Tang Clan, and as soon as that information finally becomes publicly available, thanks to us here on Stat Diggers, what happens, Brady?
Exactly.
Pudilova goes out there and starches this hoe. Finishers her. Knockout. TKO. The ref just literally peeling her off of Wu Yanan's, lifeless corpse as if she had run into the Wu-Tang Clan themselves, disrespected their album, The 36 Chambers, and they wound up would have been the same result if she had done that in person to them. Yeah. So here we are now. We got Pudilova is going to be fighting Jocelyn Edwards. Both these ladies are really young. I was surprised to see that Lucy is not even 29 years old yet, Brady, because she's got a lot of experience. 21 professional fights, 8 of them at the UFC level, 275 minutes of cage time for Pudilova, and she's fought the much better level of competition. It doesn't look like it in terms of the strength of schedule stats, but if you look at Pudilova, she's been fighting top-level competition since before Jocelyn Edwards was really even fighting top. When Jocelyn was fighting regional scene competition in Panama, okay? That's when, Lucy was starting in the UFC. So it's going to be an interesting fight. Like you said, we've seen Jocelyn Edwards get put on her back over and over and over again. And I can see why when we look at these distance striking numbers. Look at that for Jocelyn. Now, she's been at distance 41 minutes of her UFC cage time, and she's landing almost 9 distance strikes per minute while absorbing less than 5. So you talk about somebody that's really doing a great job of winning minutes. Not to mention, look at the accuracy the difference between these two ladies at distance. 51% for Edwards, 31% for Lucy Pudilova, and their striking defense is actually comparable in 56.5% for Pudilova, 55% for Jocelyn Edwards. So neither one of these ladies is showing a ton of power, but Lucy Pudilova has landed 2 knockdowns in her 8 UFC fights. Jocelyn hasn't landed any, but I think that if this fight stays standing, I think Jocelyn Edwards, with that 3-inch reach advantage that she has, that size advantage that she's going to have over Lucy here, she's the thicker girl. I think she's going to be able to win the minutes while this is at distance. The question is, can Lucy Pudilova start to work the takedown game, get in there and do what she did to Wu Yanan? But it's not very likely because Wu Yanan is a blown-up 25er. She's not really a bantamweight. She fought most of her career at 125. And Pudilova, the same thing. But now she's up here at 135, and she's fighting a much bigger girl who's a lot busier than her on the feet. And that's one of the things that set Pudilova apart, was the fact that she's a very busy striker, throwing 15.6 significant strike attempts per minute at distance. But Jocelyn Edwards is trumping that at 17.5. And she's a lot more accurate. So I kind of feel like we have to count on Pudilova here, who's only attempted 11 takedowns in 8 UFC fights and only gotten 3 of them, averaging 0.43 takedowns per 15 minutes. Can we count on her to wrestle enough if indeed she is at this distance striking advantage? So what's the line here? Because if you look at the strength of schedule stats that I have for us, Brady, these ladies are very similar. As a matter of fact, Jocelyn Edwards, probably lost to the better competition in comparison to Pudilova. So what do we have on the line?
Pudilova opened up minus 175, currently minus 135. Edwards opened up plus 150 and currently plus 115. And yeah, it almost seems like it's one of those fights where I'm like, yes, if Pudilova goes out there and wrestles, I think she makes it look pretty easy. But can we count on her to do that? I don't know. It just feels like a fight that is probably going to end up burning me if I go out there and bet, especially like chalk on Pudilova. But yeah, like you said, prior to that Wu-Tang Clan fight, she, I think, only landed 1 takedown in like 7 or 8 UFC fights, something like that. So I guess maybe it's a wrinkle she's added into her game. But yeah, if she comes out here and strikes with Edwards across 3 rounds, she's going to lose probably 30-27. So I guess it all comes down to the game plan of Pudilova, which we obviously don't know. And I really don't want to trust her in this fight. And I really don't want to bet this fight. And quite frankly, I really don't want to watch this fight. So the pick, I'm going to go with Pudilova to go out there and implement takedowns. But I've been burned more than once, laying out a game plan in my head for a fighter and then not doing it at all. So, been burned by the spots like this before. It's going to be a big pass for me.
Yeah, and if Jocelyn Edwards is still plus 150, I'd probably maybe even take that shot. But at this current line, I think it makes sense where it's at.
Yep, slight favor for Cuțelaba just because she has that path, but will she take it? We'll find out, but my money will not be on this fight more than likely. We can definitely move on to a very good fight. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on this one. We got Gaston Bolanos going against Aaron Phillips. We got Bolanos, 30 years old, 5'7" with a 70.5-inch reach. We got Aaron Phillips, 33 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. Bolanos is 3 years younger. It's going to be Phillips with a 2-inch height advantage and a 1/2 inch of reach advantage. Aaron Phillips is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He had a short stint in the UFC years ago, went 0-2, came back against Jack Shore, lost that fight by submission. And that fight at this point was 2 years and 8 months ago. Gaston Bolanos is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A couple knockout wins, a submission loss, and a decision loss. This guy, Bolanos, has a 100% finish rate. And yeah, I was watching tape on Bolanos. I was really impressed with the striking. This guy has really good striking. He throws that spinning back elbow, and he throws it a lot. He, spams it. And, what was funny was I was watching this fight, forget which fight it was, but the announcers were talking about the spinning elbow. They were like, he has this really good spinning back elbow. And then, a second later, he lands it and knocks the guy out cold. So, yeah, striking is really good. The question mark I have with Bolanos is the grappling. I think his takedown defense is solid. I think it's okay. But once the fight hits the mat, it just looks like he doesn't know what he's doing down there. And that's a concern here against Aaron Phillips, who is a black belt in BJJ. He's not been able to use that thus far in the UFC. And it's because he's fought 3 grapplers thus far. But I feel like he might go out there and try to take Bolanos down here. And if he does, could be live for a submission. Bolanos, we haven't seen him in a while as well, though. I think he's going and doing some work at AKA, which is a great move for somebody. Bolanos, work on that ground game. So maybe he has made improvements over the last year and a half since we've seen him. But it's another fight where I'm like, man, I like Bolanos, but if this fight hits the mat, I'm going to be sweating. I really want nothing to do with this one from a money line perspective. And we kind of talked about, violence might be the way to go, but it's just way overpriced. So it's a fight I'm going to be passing on, but I know you have a bet that you like here.
Yeah. So it's an interesting one, right? I mean, Phillips is 3 years older than Gaston, a little bit bigger, a lot more experienced in MMA. He's got 7 more fights. He's got about 100 more minutes in the cage and about 6 more years as a pro fighter. This guy was in the UFC way back in 2014. So he's been around. 0-3 at the UFC level. And in those 3 fights, Brady, we're talking about 37 minutes of cage time. He's been controlled by his opponents 76% of his UFC cage time. So I think it's interesting to note that as good and explosive of a striker as Gaston Bolanos is in the tape that we've seen on him, the reason that people are grappling Aaron Phillips nonstop is because Aaron Phillips is a very explosive striker as well. It's just that he's only shown 44% takedown defense, and his opponents, his 3 UFC opponents, Shore, Cecilia, and Hobar, have averaged 5.6 takedowns per 15 minutes against him, and they've taken him down 14 times in 3 fights on 25 attempts against. So none of those guys wanted anything to do with Aaron Phillips on the feet. So I think it's going to be interesting. We're probably going to get to see Aaron Phillips strike for the first time in the UFC, and it should be fun to watch because 80% of this guy's fights have been taking place on the cage or on the mat. So, and against an exciting, explosive striker like Bolanos, it's setting up a really fun matchup here. But there's a lot of reasons I feel to like the Phillips side. Number 1, he's fought the way better level of competition. Number 2, he is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, and when you watch his regional scene footage, he can mix in the grappling and do it effectively, and he's got much better defensive abilities to be able to stop submissions in comparison to Bolanos, who's been subbed in 2 of his 3 losses, and they're by complete bums. So Bolanos, very, very good on the feet, solid takedown defense and clinch game, like you said. He's a Muay Thai style striker, while Aaron Phillips is a little bit more of a traditional martial arts type striker, that sideways stance, kind of in and out, a lot of head kicks and stuff like that. Explosive in and out movements, while Bolaños is really more, hands up, not heavy on his lead leg. He will throw a lot of knees. He will throw those spinning elbows, and he's got a lot of power in both hands as well. I think it's going to be a really fun fight if it stands, but if Aaron Phillips chooses to go to the grappling here, I think he could expose Gaston Bolaños. And not only that, I just think that there's so much that we still need to find out about Gaston Bolaños. His best win is either the Daniel Carey win or the Nathan Stolen win. And neither one of those guys are even close to UFC level. As a matter of fact, the Carey win, which is his most recent win, is a guy that he had already beaten and took the fight on super short notice because 3 of Gaston Bolaños' previous opponents had all pulled out of the fight. So the only guy that they could find on short notice was a guy who had just beaten Gaston Bolaños via guillotine choke in the first round, maybe a little bit before that. So Bolaños has beaten nobody. And frankly, neither really is Aaron Phillips. But Aaron Phillips's regional scene wins are a little bit better than Bolaños's. So I kind of feel like Phillips is more experienced. He's definitely the more well-rounded fighter. And I think a lot of people have forgotten how good of a striker Aaron Phillips is because we haven't gotten to see that yet at the UFC level. So I think he's just got more ways to win this fight. So I took a 1-unit shot on Aaron Phillips at plus 170 on the money line, So, I mean, it's below a 40% implied probability. I think it's a really solid play here. I think that there's a lot of missing information on Gaston Bolaños. He's not young either. He's 30, so making his UFC debut with only 9 pro fights, 3 of them being losses, all of them to unrecognizable names, and 2 of them inside the distance submissions to guys that aren't great submission grapplers. So, yeah, I like Aaron Phillips here.
Yeah, for me, it's a pass. Just too many unknowns. We haven't seen both these guys in a long time. Somebody in the chat said, "Is Phillips even want to be here anymore?" It looks like Phillips is doing a lot of coaching outside of UFC. So I don't know, just a lot of narrative stuff. I'm gonna pick Bolaños to go out there and get the win. I love his striking. It's just that ground game was the one thing that concerned me. And yeah, Phillips watched his tape outside the UFC, and when he does get on top, he's pretty dangerous. Good ground and pound, good submission game. A sneaky prop that I was going to look at was that submission prop for Phillips. It actually opened up plus 1,400. I got smashed. Opened up plus 1,400, went to plus 1,200. Now it's plus 1,000. I'll wait for FanDuel, but I think if he gets his fight down to the mat, Bolaños looks like he's very inexperienced in terms of the grappling. So Phillips by sub could be a sneaky play, but it looks like a lot of people are seeing kind of what I'm seeing there.
Yeah, plus 1,400 is absurd. I mean, Aaron Phillips is a black belt. He's got 3 career wins by submission, and Gaston Bolaños, I mean, that guy, Daniel Carey, that he lost to via guillotine in the first round. I think Daniel Carey was 7-2 when he took that fight, or he was 6-2. Then he went to 7-2, and then when he fought Bolaños the next time, he was 7-5.
Goodness,
yeah. So I mean, he's not a good fighter, and then he got smoked. He got his ass shaved by Bolaños in the rematch, which wasn't surprising, because Bolaños, like you said, dude, very explosive striker. This is going to be a fun fight, dude.
Yep, it's definitely a step up from the first fight tonight, that's for sure.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep moving on. We have Bruna Brazil going against Denise Gomes. We got Brazil, 29 years old, 5'6" with a 65-inch reach. Gomes, 23 years old, 5'2" with a 63-inch reach. We have Denise Gomes, who is 6 years younger. It's going to be Bruna Brazil with a 4-inch height advantage and a 2-inch reach advantage. Bruna Brazil went out there on the Contender Series, got a knockout win. Prior to that, won her fights. Before that, a couple decisions, a couple submissions, and a knockout. Denise Gomes, she is 4-1 in her last 5 fights. She went out there on the Contender Series, got a decision win, and then she lost a decision against the very handsome Loma Luke Bunmi. Should be a very interesting fight here, Weezy. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a good one. I like a lot of what I've seen from Gomez. She's tough as nails. She's got power. She's got real power for a female strawweight, and that's something that we don't see a lot of. Denise Gomez is in a relationship with UFC fighter Carol Hossa. So they've been dating for a long time. They both train at Piranha Vale Tudo in Brazil. And Gomez is still rounding out her MMA game, Brady. She's a scrapper. She's tough. She's got power. But everything else needs a lot of work. The takedown defense is not great. The grappling is not great. The striking defense is god awful. Right now, even at the UFC level, Denise Gomez might as well have a head as big as a balloon because it's 39% at distance. That's almost impossible, man, to miss this girl when you're hitting her. And then not only that, she's getting hit 5.68 times per minute at distance. So against a very solid kickboxer in Bruna Brasil, who's tall, lean, athletic, and fast, and she shows some power because she varies her weapons. She'll jump in with knees. She's got great head kicks, like we saw in the Marnik Man fight on Dana White Contender Series. And Bruna Brasil has a 8-2-1 record. But those 2 losses and the 1 draw came in her first 4 professional fights. Since then, she's on a 7-fight win streak. She's good, Brady. This Bruna Brasil is the real deal. Training over with Caio Bahaio over at the Fighting Nerds, as well as Insanis MMA 013. So she's gotten to a few different camps. She's not 30 yet. She's really rounding out, and she's big, athletic, fast, and long for the division. So, and what I've seen about Bruna too is that she uses her wrestling and grappling in reverse to keep the fight standing. And in this case, she's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage, and she's going to have a 4-inch height advantage. And she uses her kicks very well. So I think Bruna's going to want to keep this fight at range. And I think she'll be successful in doing so, as Denise Gomez was 0 for 6 on her takedown attempts against Loma Lubunmi. Didn't really have any success on the ground until Loma took her down and then wound up getting reversed a couple of times. So great fight. I think Gomez is going to pressure, try to walk down Bruna, but Bruna's pretty quick. She's got good footwork, really good technical kickboxing, and I think she's going to pick apart Denise Gomez. And I think that this might be a situation where Gomez's lack of striking defense can really cost her. Because if you go and watch Denise Gomez's short notice performance against Milana Dudieva in Invicta, Brady, she got 7 shades of shit beaten out of her in that fight. She got taken down, had her back taken in the first, and I think 9 out of 10 refs stopped that fight because she got ground and pounded into oblivion in the first. Then in the second, Dudieva drops her not once, but twice, and has her on skates big time. The fight doesn't get stopped then. And then in the third round, Denise Gomez takes over, wins the fight, and beats the shit out of Dudieva on the cage. And the referee took forever to stop that one. It was a weird reffing performance there, but there's no quit in Denise Gomez. She's very durable. She's got a ton of heart, but she's still rounding out her MMA game. I think Bruna Brasil is got the much better body for the sport, the much better build, and she's a lot more well-rounded and polished. So I think that she's going to get the job done here.
Brasil opened up -160. She's currently -195. Denise Gomes opened up +140, currently +170. Yeah, don't see myself getting to anything here, but looks like Gomes is a pretty popular dog play from what I've seen this week. But yeah, -195. I'm okay on that. Any interest in that 195 there?
Not really, man. No, it's her debut, you know. And I mean, laying juice on women's MMA, we just got burned on Amarim, even though we didn't lay juice. We got plus money on the inside the distant bet, but still, man, it's rough. She's making her debut we'll see what happens here. But this Denise Gomez is a tough out for anyone.
Yeah, for sure. Somebody mentioned Bootsy barking for the dog. Bootsy was barking a lot on the best bet stream. Do you remember what his record was? Or
I
he had
don't
to call
remember.
some dogs.
Dude, he was all over Michelle Waterson Gomez and Cynthia Calvillo, and they were both this close to getting the nod. Both of them split decisions, I believe.
Yeah.
So,
good
yeah,
calls.
that was rough. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, like he gets them right sometimes, man.
Sometimes he gets them right, and sometimes he gets them very wrong. But Bootsy's not bad. He's not a bad capper for a dog.
Right. He's not bad. He's learning.
I like it. All right, let's move on to a very interesting fight here. We have the return of Daniel Zellhuber going against Lando Venata. We got Zellhuber, 23 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. Lando Venata, 31 years old, 5'9" with a 71-inch reach. Zellhuber is going to be 8 years younger. He's going to have a 4-inch height advantage and a 6-inch reach advantage. Lando Venata, he is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss against Mark Diakese, a decision win against Yancy Medeiros, a decision loss to Bobby Green, a decision win against Mike Grundy, and then a submission loss against Charles Jourdain. Daniel Zellhuber, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. He made his debut against Trey Ogden, lost that fight by decision. Prior to that, very good performance on the Contender Series against Lucas Almeida. And like a lot of people did, Weezy, a lot of people laid the chalk on Daniel Zellhuber. I was one of those people there. And, man, I was so confident in Daniel Zellhuber. I was really impressed with this guy. You know, I like the striking, the volume, the takedown defense. And I thought on paper, man, this is a terrible matchup for one Trey Ogden. And then Daniel Zellhuber goes out there and he puts on a William Knight-esque performance and just does nothing. And, I mean, you can't ask for a better matchup for the guy against Trey Ogden. But he dropped the ball there. And I want to kind of look past that fight because I remember being so impressed with Daniel Zellhuber and all his other fights. And I think we might be getting a good buy low spot here. I mean, he's going to be much younger. He's going to be much bigger, big height advantage, big reach advantage. And the takedown defense definitely checks out. It's just, can he go in there and actually fight in this fight? If he goes in there and actually fights, this could be a very winnable fight. But, man, he looked awful. I mean, it's hard to not completely ignore how awful Daniel Zellhuber looked. 29% accuracy against Trey Ogden is just inexcusable. So, I don't know. I'm a little bit terrified, but I feel like this could be a really, really good sneaky spot for Zellhuber here. I just don't know if I'm going to pull the trigger or not. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here?
All right, well, let's talk some stats first, and then we'll try to make some sense of that performance against Trey Ogden, right? But yeah, Zellhuber's much bigger here. You gotta love, I mean, the measurables, dude. He's over 7 years younger. He is 4 inches taller, and he's got a 6-inch reach advantage. So right there, you're just like, wow, you got to be on the Zellhuber side. All those measurables are statistically significant statistics that really point us in his direction. And then you look at the experience, and you're like, yeah, Lando Venata, he's been around much longer, all that. And he has. Lando Venata's got 12 fights at the UFC level, 136 minutes in the UFC cage. So he's got about 120 more minutes in the UFC cage in comparison to Zellhuber. But overall, Zellhuber's got 13 fights and over 105 minutes in the pro cage. Lando 20 and 171. So he's not that much more experienced. And Daniel's been a lot more active. Well, not a lot more active, but, you know, a little bit more active, especially recently. Both of these guys are good finishers, but Venata's got the better finish rate overall. At distance, Venata does a little bit better work on paper. And I would actually argue that he might be able to do the better work at distance here. Venata's fought the much better level of competition overall as a professional. No question about that. Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green twice, Diakese, Charles Jourdain, you know, really good guys. While Zellhuber's fighting regional scene competition before DWCS, that really wasn't very good. But the Trey Ogden fight, right? So let's first talk about the Lucas Almeida fight. Almeida's a featherweight, but he moved up to lightweight to take that fight against Zellhuber. And Zellhuber looked great, but the difference in the fight was Lucas Almeida was marching forward and making Daniel Zellhuber fight. And as a result of that, Zellhuber had to throw a ton of volume just to try to make Lucas Almeida fuck off. But Lucas wouldn't fuck off, not for the entire fight. So we got to see 3 rounds of Daniel Zellhuber striking like he should, in volume, keeping distance, staying on his bike, using that fantastic reach advantage that he has. Now he goes out there the next fight, and Trey Ogden doesn't take a forward step for the entire fight, right? And what happens? Zellhuber doesn't do shit. Zellhuber would rather counter. Zellhuber would rather that his opponent take the reins and push the pace of the fight, because it's going to make him do what he does best, which is use that footwork, use that length, use that distance management, which are all things that he does really well when he has the opportunity to do them. But man, Trey just did more than him. I mean, you look at Zellhuber landing 3.62 but absorbing 4.94 distance strikes, and that fight took place at distance over almost 96% of the time. So what's Venata going to do? Venata's not a zombie that walks forward. He's just not, man. He's explosive. He's got a traditional martial arts striking style, a lot of spinning shit, a lot of exploding in and out. Man, I think he's going to make this fight a lot like what Trey Ogden did. And I think that Daniel Zellhuber, we're going to find, is very one-dimensional in terms of, he needs a volume striker to make him fight in order to look at his best. And you look at the volume numbers from Venata over the long term, they're not particularly great. I think it might be a decent stylistic matchup here for Lando. And I think Lando might even mix in the wrestling a little bit here, and he could potentially have some success. But, Lando's more experienced, especially at the UFC level. He's fought the much better brand of competition. I know Lando's the better wrestler because he's been wrestling guys up a weight class at 155 for most of his career, even though he's really more of a natural 45er. This fight will be taking place at 55. But yeah, man, I was looking for reasons to get to the Zellhuber side, and I don't know if the stylistic matchup is one that's going to bring out the best of Zellhuber. So I'm not sure, man. I don't know what I think about this one.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I might plug my nose and take a shot on Zellhuber. Everybody's down on him, and I get it. He cost a lot of people a lot of money. Like
me too. I am as the ass shaving, dude. It was humiliating.
Yeah, terrible. I lost 2.5. I never laid that much chalk on a fighter that confidently, and I did. I was so confident in Zellhuber. I might go back to him here. He moved camps. He's training at Extreme Couture. I think that's a good look because prior to that, he was training at Romero team.
Yeah, Romero team in Mexico. Yeah, but I think on the Contender Series, they were talking. I think Nixick might have even been in his corner for that one. So he had just moved. So I might as well change that.
Yeah, he's at Extreme Couture. I like that. I don't see Venata going and getting takedowns here. I mean, Venata, he's the better wrestler, but only 11 takedowns in like 12 or 13 UFC fights. I think Zellhuber's takedown defense is good. I think this fight plays out in the feed, and yeah, it's all going to come down to volume here. But yeah, that's a big height and reach advantage. Like, what was Zellhuber that much bigger than Trey Ogden too? Because this is a big height and reach advantage. Like Zellhuber is going to look a lot bigger than Venata in this one.
Yeah, I think I can actually hear. Let's bring up last week's stats because we'll find out what Ogden's what his reach was.
Yeah.
So it was 415. No, that's the one we already got. That it's 4.8, and there it is. So Trey Ogden's reach. Let's let this load. And did I miss it? There it is. Ogden has a 72-inch reach. So we had a big reach advantage over that dude, too. He just didn't do anything with it.
So much worse. Yeah.
But here's the thing, Brady. Like you mentioned, the camp switch, he's only 23 years old.
23.
Like he had just switched to Extreme Couture just before the Almeida fight. Then he gets his, maybe they just like, they put too much in his head all at once. And he was just in there thinking too much. And then the nerves. But, it was weird because also with the nerves, I went and I watched that fight again with Ogden. That fight was in the Apex. There was no crowd. Exactly. His last fight before that, where he had just performed awesome against Lucas Almeida, and that win aged well, that was in the Apex as well. So I don't want to chalk it up to nerves because it was a comfortable setting for Daniel. It just might have been the new coaching. It could have just been, the fact that he froze. I don't know, but we might have found the real Daniel Zellhuber in that Trey Ogden fight, and that remains to be seen. But the kid's still only 23.
Yeah, so young. And I kind of agree with Lando. I'll give him one more chance here. And if he blows it, I'm done. Last chance, Zellhuber, to get it right. Last chance.
And if you screw this one up, it's minus 130 instead of what? He closed at minus 400 against Ogden, Brady.
Yeah.
So it's a lot less lost this time.
Yeah, I bet him at like 250. Beat the line by a ton, and then he goes up there. Yeah, but he's only minus 115 here. A minus 115 that is on MGM. I'm not sure where this line's going to go, to be honest. Zellhuber opened up minus 175. He's currently minus 120. Venata opening up plus 150. He's currently plus 100. I'm not sure where this line's going to go. I'm not really sure where everybody's out, but I kind of expected everybody to be very, very low on Zellhuber because I was initially like I didn't even want to look into this fight because I was just still so sick at that performance. But yeah, I might hop on it one more time, see what happens. But it should be an interesting fight regardless. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We have Piera Rodriguez going against Jillian Robertson. We got Robertson, 27 years old, 5'5", with a 63-inch reach. Rodriguez, 30 years old, 5'3", with a 63-inch reach. We have Robertson, 3 years younger. Robertson, a 2-inch height advantage, same reach there. Robertson, she is 2-3 in her last 5 fights. Decision loss against Tyler Santos. Decision loss against Miranda Maverick. Submission win against Priscilla Cachoeira, who, by the way, we will be seeing next week. Let's go. I'm looking forward to that. Decision loss against JJ Aldrich and a submission win against Maria Agapova. As far as Piera Rodriguez, 5-0 in her last 5 fights. She made her debut against Kay Hansen, won that fight by decision, also had a nice win on the Contender Series as well, and had a nice win against Sam Hughes. So you hit me up like last week, Weezy, and you're like, dude, I think Jillian Robertson's a good look at like plus 140. Plus 140. I didn't get around until looking into it until recently, and by the time I got done with it, she was like minus 110. Yeah, I would have loved that plus 140. I think it's a close fight here, though. Jillian Robertson is something like big to mention is she's going to be coming down a weight class here to strawweight. So I think I'm going to really have to wait to see how she looks on the scales. But yeah, I think it's really going to come down to who's going to be able to get this fight down to the mat. Because Rodriguez, she has some pretty solid wrestling in her own right, but as does Jillian Robertson and up a weight class as well. So if she can have a good weight cut, come down here to strawweight, be the much bigger fighter, the much stronger fighter probably, yeah, she could probably take down Rodriguez and have some success. On the feet, it's not even close. Rodriguez, I don't even think she's like the best striker in the world, but she's going to have just a much better striking than Jillian Robertson, just because pretty much everybody's going to. But yeah, Robertson's game is getting the fight down to the mat. She's a black belt. She's dangerous. At plus 140 last week, I would have bet that on Robertson, but at this point, it's just a pass for me. A straight pick'em. I think a pick'em's about right. Because I think Rodriguez has a massive striking advantage, and I don't think Rodriguez has, the worst grappling in her own right, and I don't think she has the worst wrestling as well. So, very interesting fight. This is probably, I think, the closest line fight on the card. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how Jillian looks on the scales. This is a woman who's got 18 professional fights, and they're all up at 125. So, this is the first time we're going to see her down there. So that's going to be a huge piece of information that we need to wait to see in order to find out, where the money line should go on this one. But yeah, it's pretty simple, right? Jillian's a lot more experienced, 9 more professional fights, about 60 more minutes in the pro cage, 11 more fights at the UFC level, 90 more minutes at the UFC cage. She's the better finisher overall as a pro, and she's finished 7 of her 8 UFC wins, while Piera has 2 UFC wins and no finishes, and that's against Sam Hughes and Kay Hansen. The Piera Rodriguez, though, has real power for a straw weight. She hits very hard. Like the ladies that she beat after she beat them look like they all they look like they fell off a moving train. She fucks girls up when she beats them. And Jillian Robertson is terrible on the feet. 9.36 strikes attempted, 12.78 coming back her way. About a 1.76 negative distance striking differential. 34% distance striking accuracy, has never landed a knockdown in 13 fights. Jillian's got to get this fight to the ground. But as long as it stays on the feet, Piera hits very hard and is going to have finishing potential, especially with that weight cut from Jillian. She may not be as durable on the feet as she was at 125 when she wasn't cutting as much weight. And Piera's shown some good wrestling. I mean, she's averaging 4 takedowns per 15 minutes, while Jillian is averaging about 2.6. But obviously, Jillian Robertson is the much better submission grappler here. And Jillian has been successful getting her fights into grappling positions 2/3 of the time. So this is going to be interesting because it's going to be about who gets their way here. Does Jillian get this fight to the ground and get on top? Because if she does, Piera's going to be in a whole heap of trouble. I don't care who she trains with. It's different once you get in there in the cage and there's money at stake, rather than just in the training room with really good grapplers who are your friends and teammates who might not be trying to hurt you like Jillian will be. So I think somebody's dangerous wherever this fight goes. But we've got to wait to see how Jillian looks on the scales. Violence could be a good play. We talked about it on probability, Brady, but the bookies are all over it. I don't know. This is a great fight, man. This is a great fight. I could see both of these ladies having success. I think I'm going to pick Jillian Robertson, but, I reserve my right to not really put any confidence in my pick on who's going to win this fight until I see the weigh-ins.
Yeah, it's a tough one. This line completely flipped though. Robertson opened up plus 115, now minus 130. Rodriguez opened at minus 135, currently plus 110. It's a dog or pass fight for me. So for that reason, I'm going to pick Rodriguez to win the fight. But yeah, not a ton of confidence. And if Jillian comes in on the scales and looks like crap, I'll probably even bet Rodriguez at plus money as well. I think this line, it's flipping, and I don't think it should get too wide because Rodriguez definitely has some advantages here.
Yeah, she really does. She's tough as nails. And she's, she's the older fighter, which is kind of crazy. Pierre is 30 and Jillian Robertson isn't even 28 yet. So we're going to see this is the next chapter in Jillian Robertson's career to see if she can perform as a strawweight in the UFC. And if she can, and her wrestling is on point down here, that grappling game of hers is going to be a problem.
Absolutely. But yeah, lots of people in the chat got Robertson plus 141, Dev plus 135. Ice, you guys did your job. I would have been on that same line there, but at this point, I'm not laying minus 130 on Jillian Robertson. I feel like that would be very irresponsible to do so. So if you got in early, congrats to you, but I will not be betting Robertson this week. Missed the boat. All right. Oh my gosh. This is the 1-800-GAMBLER fight of all time. Question mark. I mean, this could be the most 1-800-GAMBLER fight we will ever see in our lifetimes, Weezy. We have Zach Cummings going against Ed Herman. We got Zach Cummings, 38 years old, 6 foot with a 75-inch reach. Ed Herman, 42 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. Zach Cummings, the younger guy, 4 years younger. He's going to have a 1-inch height disadvantage and a 2-inch reach disadvantage. Zach Cummings, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. A decision lost against Michelle Prazeres, a decision win against Trevor Smith, submission win against Officer Giles, a decision loss to Amari Akhmedov, and then a decision win against Alessio Di Chirico. As far as Ed Herman, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss to Sean Vellante, a knockout win against Patrick Cummings, a decision win against Khadis Ibrahimov, a submission win against Mike Rodriguez, a decision loss against Alonzo Menifil. So I guess the big story here is we have not seen Zach Cummings in a concerning amount of time. Like, it's almost been 3 years since we've seen Zach Cummings in the cage. And the picture on his Instagram, it's circulating around on Twitter. Zach Cummings looks like shit. He looks like absolute shit. He's coming up a weight class. It looks like he just took the 3 years off and he's been on vacation. I don't know what he's been doing, but it doesn't really look like he's been training all that much. Looks completely out of shape. Hasn't fought in, like I said, almost 3 years. And he's like a minus 220 favorite. And, oh my gosh, this fight. Ed Herman, he's 42 years old. 42 years old. Against Alonzo Menafield, he showed toughness. I'm not sure how Menafield did not finish Ed Herman. It looked like Menafield was on his way to getting him out of there, but Ed Herman did survive the full 15 minutes, so props to him for that. But even that was like over a year ago, so we still haven't seen Ed Herman in a while as well. Prior to that, he lost against Mike Rodriguez. He got finished in that fight. And then for some reason, they called it a groin strike when it was not even close to a groin strike. It was not even close. Mike Rodriguez finished Ed Herman, but Ed Herman used that veteran savvy. Eventually got the fight to the third round down to the mat and finished Mike Rodriguez by sub there. Yeah, I mean, nothing's sticking out here. I'm not laying minus 220 on Zach Cummings. At the same time, I'm not betting Ed Herman as well. And no props stick out as well. This is the worst fight on the card by a mile. I was telling you earlier, like this fight would have been cool like 10 years ago, but man, I don't know. Just this is so sketchy. I don't know what's going to happen here, but I know I don't want my money on it. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this absolute banger?
God help us. God help us is my thought on this. I mean, we got a 42-year-old Ed Herman, and he's fighting Fat Cummings. Because like Fat Cummings used to be a welterweight, and then he was like, you know what? I don't want to cut that weight anymore, and I'm going to move up to middleweight, and I'm going to be a fat middleweight. He was a fat middleweight. He was in, like one of those guys that, like, you look at 170, you're like, okay, this guy isn't a natural athlete, but he's obviously a really good fighter. He's got good stand-up, really good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I mean, he's a well-rounded fighter. There's a reason that this dude has 13 UFC fights and he's 9-4 in the UFC. But now this is not, welterweight Zach Cummings. This is 38-year-old on a 3-year layoff, newly light heavyweight Fat Cummings. So, wow, Fat Cummings could be like a really good porn star name, like to do like niche work. But I don't know if this is a good fight, though. It's just, well, I mean, I know it's not a good fight. I know that. We've been doing this long enough, Brady, to smell out a stinker when we see one, and this one has got stink lines coming off of it. And I'm not betting on. Can you imagine? What would be hilarious, Brady?
What's that?
Is if you're like, okay, short fuse is done, dude. I'm laying the juice on Zach Cummings, and then you see the Fat Cummings pick, and you're like, oh fuck, this fight's at 205. Oh fuck, You make all the realizations and you've already got the money down, and then you realize it's on Fat Cummings and not Zach Cummings. So, man, DXJC says Ron Jeremy should have taken Fat Cummings. That's the best analysis on this fight that we can come up with, and it was by the DXJC. So thank you for that. I don't care. I'm not betting this fight. No, it's just a no.
Yeah, it's just one big giant no. Dev saying, y'all crazy. I'm going to be laughing all the way to the bank when Cummings by sub plus 600 cashes. You could probably wait on FanDuel to get that like a much better price. It actually already got better. It's plus 650. Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm crazy then because nothing's sticking out here.
Yeah, I mean, Ed Herman has got 15 professional losses. He's got 6 losses in the UFC, and he's never been subbed, actually. He's a black. I think he's a black belt. I think. Yeah, he has been for years. Like that's always been his base. So he's a really good but he's a 42-year-old man. He could sub to a foot stomp. He could tap to it, be like, all right, I'm done. Mm-hmm. So anything can happen. Yeah, but Mushroom called it. Fight goes to disappointment. FGTD. I
feel like if I put my money on this fight, I'm just gonna be very disappointed as well.
Yeah. If you're going to watch this fight, you're going to be disappointed. When you see what Zach Cummings looks like in 2023, you're going to be disappointed.
He might look so bad on the scale that I can't bet it. I can't bet Ed Herman, but I'm gonna be like, man, I might. I don't know. I feel like Cummings is going to look equivalent to how Jake Collier looked. Remember when Jake Collier came up from middleweight to heavyweight, and everybody's like, who the heck is that? I feel like we might get that type of situation.
This is going to look like a couple of drunk hockey dads fighting in the crowd of their son's game.
Oh, just what a sick mess. Oh, I feel disgusting even thinking about placing any money on this fight. But
let's not do it. Let's not do it. This is the 1-800 game. Expect a knock on the door, from the orderlies if you're betting on that fight.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on. Let's move on to an actual fight. We have a very good fight. This is probably one of my favorite fights on the card, actually, and it's on the prelims for some reason. UFC, I think they should probably move this to the main card. Maybe they will by the end of the week, but yeah, prelim as of now. Brandon Royval, Matheus Nicolau, both guys 30 years old. We got Royval with a 5'9" reach and a 68" reach. 5'9" height and then a 68" reach. Matheus Nicolau 5'6" with a 66" reach. We have Royval with a 3" height advantage and a 2" reach advantage. Royval is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Submission win against Kai Kara-France. Knockout loss against Brandon Moreno. Submission loss to Alexander Pantoja. Decision win against Rogerio Bontorin. And then a submission win against Matt Schnell. As far as Nicolau, he is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. Knockout loss to Dustin Ortiz. Decision win against Manel Kape. Decision win against Tim Elliott, decision win against David Dvorak, and then a knockout win against Matt Schnell. The thing about this fight that I really like is we kind of got a clash of styles in a sense where Matheus Nicolau, kind of low volume, likes to take his time, really likes to pick his shots. And then you have a shitting wild man like Brandon Royval who's going to want to get in your face, throw flying knees, throw spinning back fists, spinning back elbows, has no concern for his own safety, eats punches with his face. He'll get knocked down, he'll get back up, and he'll knock you down. This is going to be a crazy fight, and that's just because it's a Brandon Royval fight, and pretty much every single Brandon Royval fight is just madness from the jump. I don't really like the line here on Nicolau just due to the fact that Brandon Royval, he's just so unpredictable. Like, there's not a lot of fighters like Brandon Royval who can go out there and fight like a complete madman with the scrambling ability. He's a BJJ black belt now. He has a ton of power as well. I think the better fighter, no question about it, is Matheus Nicolau. I think Nicolau has good wrestling. He's a BJJ black belt in his own right, really good striking. But, I don't know if that's going to matter here. Brandon Royval lands a big shot and knocks out Nicolau. Because Nicolau's been finishing both his losses. What I like here more than anything is that under, just because it's a Brandon Royval fight. Mm-hmm. And as far as picking a side, I'm going to go with Nicolau. I think he is the better fighter. I think he's much, much more defensively sound. And I think he hits like a truck for the division. And we've seen Brandon Royval get knocked down a ton. He got knocked down in his last fight, actually, by Matt Schnell. Got knocked down by Kai Kara-France. So I'm going to say Nicolau does knock out a very hittable Brandon Royval. But Royval's definitely going to have his moments, I think. But give me the under, if anything here. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, such a great fight. I mean, and like you broke it down perfectly in calling it a clash of styles, because that's exactly what it is. It's the volume, pace, and spastic nature of Royval going up against that real patient counter striker, low volume, but good moment winning recipe that Nicolau brings. I mean, a guy who's got 8 UFC knockdowns in 8 UFC fights. A guy that only throws 8 significant strike attempts per minute at distance, but has landed 8 knockdowns in 8 fights and is striking at a 52% accuracy. So he's sniper-like out there, and boy, is he hard to find. 68.75% distance striking defense for Nicolau. So Nicolau is just like this master minute winner where he can be low volume and still outland his opponents. He can be really defensively sound, but still manage to land with power. And that Brazilian jiu-jitsu game of his, when he chooses to use it, is very, very good. And he doesn't allow you to take him down. He's got 93% takedown defense on 15 attempts against, and he's been controlled for less than 5% of his UFC cage time, while Brandon Royval is being controlled almost 47% of his UFC cage time. So if there's ever a point in this fight where Nicolau feels like, I am sick of this dude's volume and the spastic shit that he's throwing at me, Nicolau is just going to take him down and control him for long stretches of the fight here. So very interesting fight. Two really good submission grapplers, two strikers with a ton of power, but I love the violent side of this fight because much like how Zellhuber needed a good dance partner in Lucas Almeida to make him look like a high volume striker, Nicolau is going to need an opponent like Royval who's sloppy but also pressures and throws a ton of volume and fights with pace in order to bring out that guy that wants to counter strike and turn him into a little bit more of a brawler. And then also do something that I think Nicolau fans want to see him do is where if he doesn't feel like dealing with the volume on the feet, turn into a wrestler and start working that black belt that he has in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, because he can get a submission off of Brandon Royval as well. So, this is a very interesting fight, man. Royval's been subbed in the UFC before, but I think it might have been the fight where he had the injury. Is that right? Pantoja. That was an injury, I think.
No, he choked him out. The injury was Morono.
Oh, okay, my bad. But either way, Nicolau is a very talented submission grappler. So, I mean, I think that violence is the way to go on. I bet 1 unit on the under 2.5 at plus 135 here. That line is long gone, but that is still pretty bettable at minus 110, in my opinion.
Yep, under for me. I'm not in love with this money line, though. And I'm a huge Nicolau fan. Like, I really like Matheus Nicolau, but he opened up minus 145, minus 205 now. Brandon Royval is currently a plus 175 dog, and I don't know. I think Nicolau wins this fight, but minus 205, I just can't really get there just because Brandon Royval is just such a wild card.
Yeah, and he can bring mistakes out of his opponent. And Nicolau is a guy who hates to make mistakes, and you could tell by the way he fights. He's low volume. He waits to counter. He doesn't try a lot of takedowns, but when he does try them, he's getting them. He seems to be kind of risk averse, but you can't be risk averse against Royval. He brings too much chaos, so maybe he brings that mistake out of Nicolau, and we see Nicolau finish for the 3rd time in his career.
Yep, really good fight. Really, really good fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. Like I said, probably my first or second favorite fight on the entire card, and it's on the prelims. All right. I think this is the start of the main card, though. We got Bill Algeo going against TJ Brown. We got Algeo, 33 years old, 6 foot with a 73-inch reach. TJ Brown, 32 years old, 5'9" with a 72-inch reach. We got TJ Brown 1 year younger. It's going to be Bill Algeo with a 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach advantage. Bill Algeo, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a decision win against Spike Carlisle, decision loss against Ricardo Ramos, a decision win against Joe Anderson Brito, a knockout win against Herbert Burns, and then a decision loss to Andre Fili. As far as TJ Brown, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a decision loss against Danny Chavez, a decision win against Kai Kamaka, a decision win against Charles Rosa, a decision loss against Shaliander and Beke, and then a submission win against that phony. What do you think? Is Eric Silva a phony, Weezy?
Yeah, I called him that, because of the level of competition that he had faced on the regional scene. And plus, when you're a featherweight and you're making your debut at 35 years old, it's a big red flag.
Yeah, and he proved to be a phony. Good bet there on Brown. Did you get Brown at plus money there?
No, I think it was a little bit of juice on that one. But it was in my greasy 4-leg parlay, and I think it cashed that week. Thanks to TJ getting the job done there. But yeah, man, this is a good fight. This is gonna be a fun back and forth fight.
Yep. First look, I was kind of feeling TJ Brown a little bit just because you look on paper, it's Bill Algeo's takedown defense is just trash, 54%. All of the Browns isn't good at all. It's 31%. And Brown is a really good wrestler. It's just, I got into the tape and I'm like, man, Bill Algeo, his get-up game is elite. Like, it's very, very good. This guy gets taken down, but he always gets back up. The only time I really saw him held down was in the Andre Fili fight in the 3rd round where Fili took his back. But Bill Algeo put on Instagram that he actually broke his arm, he said, in that third round, the beginning of the third round. So maybe that was why he couldn't get back up. But every other time he's getting back up. Ramos took him down 8 times, popped back up. Brito took him down a couple times, popped back up. In his debut, he got taken down a couple times, popped right back up. Same thing with Spike Carlisle. So, yeah, Algeo's takedown defense isn't good, but he's a black belt and he's very hard to hold down. And I think that's going to give Brown some problems because I think Brown can get takedowns, but man, Brown makes so many mistakes on the mat. I mean, even against Eric Silva, I went back and watched that Silva fight. Like, he was making mistakes against Silva in the first round, getting reversed multiple times by Eric Silva. Luckily for Brown, Silva completely gassed out. He looked uninterested after a round and a half, but I feel like Bill Algeo is a guy that kind of grows into the fight, gets better and better as the fight goes on, and he's a guy that is just going to put it on you from the jump. And I'm not sure TJ Brown is going to keep up for the full 3 rounds. So I think it'll be competitive early where Brown's going to get takedowns here, but I see Algeo popping right back up. And I even feel like, Brown could potentially get reversed here, end up on bottom. And I feel like as the fight goes on, we're going to see Algeo get better and better here. We've seen TJ Brown completely gas out in the past against Jordan Griffin in his debut. We've seen TJ Brown go out there against Danny Chavez and not even try to wrestle at all. And even in that Kai Kamaka fight, like, I had a bet on TJ Brown. I swear he lost that fight. Like, I even left the room in disgust because I thought TJ Brown lost that fight against Kai Kamaka. Luckily, he got the win, but wasn't too impressive there. Lost against Sha Lian as a big dog. But, I like Algeo here. I like him quite a bit after tape. And the line's just getting crushed, though. I got him at minus 165. It looks like he's already like minus 200 or wider now. So a lot of people on Algeo, that does scare me a bit. But it should be a pretty solid matchup for him across 3 rounds here, because I don't see either guy getting finished. We talked about this a little bit on probability where we both like the over. I think if there's a finish in this fight, it's like an Algeo very late finish if Brown does slow down, but I think the over is a good look, and I like Algeo to win this fight and probably by decision, and maybe like the 3rd round decision prop for Algeo wouldn't be the worst look in the world as well. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this fight here? Should be a fun one, and what's even more fun is going to be the haircut of TJ Brown. We're looking forward to seeing what haircut he shows up with. It's always something with that guy.
Yeah, and every damn TJ Brown fight week, Brady, every damn time we have to watch that commercial that he did for that adult bookstore in Arkansas. It's so bad. Moist Noise, he posts that every damn TJ Brown fight week, and it's just like it's just cringeworthy watching it. But either way, man, this is a fun fight. Neither one of these guys has fantastic UFC wins. I mean, like the Joe Anderson Brito win for Algeo is really good, and Algeo's losses are the absolute studs. We can't say the same about TJ Brown. The guys who've beaten TJ Brown in the UFC are actually 5-8.
What'd you say?
I said the guys that have beaten TJ Brown, they have records. Their UFC combined records of these 3 guys are 5-8.
Oh my goodness!
And 3 of those 5 wins are against TJ Brown because TJ Brown has 3 losses. So it's bad. It's bad, and Algeo does have bad takedown defense, but he's got a great get-up game. He can get takedowns on TJ Brown if he wants them because TJ Brown has terrible takedown defense. Both of these guys throw a lot of volume at range. I think they're both going to have some success at distance striking range. I think they're both going to probably win some minutes in the grappling exchanges, but if you look at efficiency, I like Bill Algeo's efficiency a lot more than TJ Brown's. And that's strange to say because you see that TJ Brown is winning 58% of the control time positions that he's in, and Algeo is only winning 41%. But when you look at it this way, Algeo has 11 takedown attempts, and Algeo's opponents have 46 against him, right? So you would expect that he'd be getting out-controlled maybe at a 4-to-1 ratio, but he's only getting out-controlled 29% to 21%. And TJ Brown has 34 takedown attempts. His opponents have 16. So he tries 2 takedowns for every 1 that his opponents take, but he's only winning about 58% of the control time positions that he's in. So he's a little less efficient in terms of getting up when he gets taken down and holding guys down when he's the one that gets the takedowns. In terms of strength of schedule, I mean, like TJ Brown has really fought bottom of the barrel type of guys. And like you mentioned, he didn't beat Kai Kamaka.
I don't
He
think
lost
so.
that fight.
Yeah.
And I think we both had bets on TJ Brown there. And yeah, he lost. So I think that this is a pretty decent spot for Algeo. But I don't think that Algeo is like this guy that you can lay minus 200 on at the UFC level, because he's not phenomenal at anything. He's not a phenomenal minute winner in the striking exchanges. He doesn't have great power or finishing ability or like this great moment winning ability. He's got poor takedown defense, and he doesn't have a lot of power either. So, yeah, I mean, like, this is a big stay away from me, because I think I would probably maybe bet the TJ Brown money line if it's Algeo minus 200, Brown plus 170. I would probably bet Brown before I would bet Algeo, but I just don't have any faith in TJ Brown, in his ability to be able to put together a winning game plan, and then execute. He might have a winning game plan, but I think it's the execution, Brady, where he's lacking, and that, like it is for so many fighters, really. But yeah, this one feels like a stay away, but one of my most confident reads of the week is the over 2.5 in this fight. Bill Algeo has never been finished at the UFC level. TJ Brown has been subbed once, which is a little bit concerning, because that sub was a weird one against Jordan Griffin, right? Like it was like a no hooks rear naked choke. It was weird. So that does worry me a little bit. But look, 5 of 6 of Algeo's fights have went over 2.5 rounds. 5 of 6 of Brown's UFC fights have went over 2.5 rounds. So that's 83.33%. But the over 2.5 is priced around minus 200, a 67% implied probability. Neither one of these guys really has much UFC finishing equity. So I think that this one goes to decision. Love the over 2.5 here. And I'm picking Bill Algeo to win by decision, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's a tough matchup for Brown to stylistically, just because of Algeo's get-up game. And I think his best attributes probably that cardio and that pace and that volume that he brings to the table. But yeah, I'm taking Algeo. Probably going to beat a crap ton of line movement on it, which is always scary. The line movement curse, but because I think he's just going to keep getting pounded here, which again is terrifying. But I think he should win this fight more often than not. But yeah, the over solid as well. Yeah, should be an interesting fight, and should be a very interesting haircut. Maybe if he comes in with a good haircut, maybe I'll be a little bit less confident. But knowing TJ Brown, he probably has a terrible one.
Yeah, that's one, just like the adults video store commercial gets played every week, you can count on TJ Brown for a bad haircut every fight week as well.
I wish we could play that video on the show. He's like, hey, it's TJ Brown.
He's like holding up lingerie saying, wouldn't your girlfriend look good in this? You're just like, oh, TJ, like, who wrote the script on this shit? It's terrible, man.
Yeah. All right. We can move on to the next fight. All right. We have the biggest favorite on the card, Rafa Garcia, going against Clay Guida. We got Garcia, 28 years old, 5'7", with a 70-inch reach. Clay Guida, 41 years old, 5'7", with a 70-inch reach. Rafa Garcia is going to be 13 years younger, same height, same reach there. Clay Guida, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision win against Michael Johnson. Decision loss against Mark Madsen. Submission win against Leonardo Santos. A submission loss to Claudio Puellas. A decision win against Scott Holtzman. Very close fight there. As far as Rafa Garcia, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. Decision loss against Chris Grutzmacher. Decision win against Natan Levy. Submission win against Jesse Ronson. Decision loss against Drakkar Klose. And then a decision win against Mahashate. And yeah, Rafa Garcia, the thing about him, he came into the UFC really young at like 26 years old. And I've seen a ton of improvements with the guy over the last couple of years. And I think a lot of it has to do with his move to Elevation Fight Team. I'm not sure when he moved. I'm not sure if you do, Weezy. But he went there a couple fights ago. And you can really tell in his performances. Like against Natan Levy, he looked really good. A gas tank was a big concern for me with Rafa Garcia. He looked a little bit tired, but his gas tank looked much improved, compared to like the Chris Grutzmacher fight, right? And then the Jesse Ronson fight, he actually broke Jesse Ronson and subbed Ronson, which was a very impressive win. He lost to Drakkar Klose in a fight that, was competitive, but Klose clearly won. And then he went out there and went to war with a really big Mahashate Maheshate. Like, that fight was very interesting to watch just because Maheshate looked like 2 weight classes above Rafa Garcia, and Garcia was able to take him down consistently and win that fight. So I think we have a young guy in Rafa Garcia who's making drastic improvements. And then we have a guy in Clay Guida who maybe he's on his way out, maybe not. But my goodness, he's 41 years old at lightweight. It's crazy that Clay Guida is still going out there and having success. Against Scott Holtzman, he won that fight, but Scott Holtzman is like 40 years old as well. Lost to Poyas. He should have lost to Leonardo Santos if it wasn't for Keith Peterson. But Santos is another old guy up there in age. He lost to Mark Madsen in a striking fight. And then he beat Michael Johnson, another guy up there in age. So this is going to be a young guy, and Clay Guida is going to be taken on here. I like Garcia here. I think he's probably going to be a better striker. I think he's going to be the harder hitter on the feet. I think he's going to have success in the wrestling. And I think Guida could potentially as well, but Garcia's get-up game is very good. I think if Garcia can get this fight down to the mat, he can have a lot of opportunities to get a submission here just due to the fact that Guida's been submitted a concerning amount. I think it's like 12 times Clay Guida's been subbed. Like, every time he fights somebody with good BJJ, he gets caught in something. So I kind of like Garcia by sub. I was hoping for a little bit better of a price. They only have it at plus 400, but I'm going to say Garcia gets the submission win. But Clay Guida's a tricky guy. He's a veteran, but man, he's really getting up there in age, and he's taking on somebody so young here and improving in Garcia. So I like Garcia. Like I said, he's the biggest favorite on the card at this point. Yeah, he's the biggest favorite on the card. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one? Anything sticking out?
Yeah, I mean, like, these guys are the same height, same reach, but Garcia is like almost 13 years younger than him. That's just huge. If Clay Guida, this is going to be his 59th pro fight. It shows him with 18 UFC fights. That's 18 UFC fights since 2013, though. This guy's career spans almost 20 years at this point. Clay Guida has been a professional mixed martial artist. So, yeah, and he's still performing at a high level, man. He's still out there, with great conditioning, great movement, great wrestling. I want to point everybody's attention over to the strength of schedule numbers over on the right of the screen here. Clay Guida, over this 18-fight sample size at the UFC level since 2013, gets 35.5% control time and only allows 8.5. He's winning 80% of the control time positions that he's in and out-controlling his opponents at a 4.16 to 1 ratio. And for Garcia, it's the same thing, but only better in a small sample size, though. And a smaller sample size of 6 fights. But an 84-minute sample size, so also very big sample size here for Garcia. Yeah, he's winning 90% of the control time positions that he's in. And, he's out controlling his opponents at an 8.8 to 1 ratio. So, boy, it's kind of hard to pick Clay Guida here. But they're very similar fighters. They're both absorbing more strikes on the feet than they land. They've both got pretty good striking defense and don't get knocked down much. Rafa hasn't shown power, but Clay Guida has. Clay Guida's got 3 knockdowns in 18 fights since 2013. So, he's got a little bit of power. He broke Rafael Dos Anjos' jaw, and made him tap out. This is a guy who's beaten some really good competition. So it's an interesting fight, but like, stylistically, everything that Clay does well, Rafa does well. But Rafa's 13 years younger and 28 years old, So it's hard to pick Clay. But Clay's a legend, man. You can't count this dude out. And, the ABCs tell you always bet on conditioning. And Clay Guida's always going to be a very well-conditioned athlete. And he's an excellent wrestler who has the ability to win minutes with the wrestling. So, this could get greasy, man. If this winds up being a striking match, because there's a lot of people who don't want to wrestle with Clay Guida. There are people willing to submission grapple with Clay Guida, but just wrestling with him, it's not necessarily the best idea because he's got such good conditioning that if you try to wrestle him and aren't successful trying to submit him, he can wear you down and finish you late. So, yeah, I mean, I'm picking Garcia to win. I'll pick him to win by decision here. But, yeah, you always have to hold your breath whenever Clay's on the ground and hope that he doesn't get submitted. And Rafa's got a lot of wins by submission in his career. I think 8 of them. So
there's a lot.
Yeah, and I think if my math is correct, Clay's been submitted 11 times in his career.
Yeah, that's why I like that sub prop. But dang it, Bet Online it actually opened up plus 425. It's plus 400. I need a better line than that, Bet Online. So not gonna be touching that. But I will be looking at it on like FanDuel or DraftKings. Yeah, like you mentioned, they're both really similar. It's just one guy's gonna be walking out to the cage in a walker, and the other guy's
exactly
gonna be jogging out there in García.
I know.
Yeah,
I know this is a good fight, and like I'm a huge Clay Guida fan, like we were talking before the show. I remember him in Strikeforce back in 2006 or some shit. I remember that was when I first started really watching mixed martial arts, consistently. And you don't forget Clay Guida with that hair and that movement and that jumping around and the crazy conditioning. So yeah, man, it's just he's fighting a much younger version of himself here. So it's going to be an interesting fight, but I'm picking Rafa.
Yep. We shall see where some of these props open up at. Really curious for that. But we can move on to the next fight. We have Chris Gutiérrez going against Pedro Munhoz. We got Chris Gutiérrez, 31 years old, 5'9" with a 67-inch reach. Pedro Munhoz, 36 years old, 5'6" with a 65-inch reach. Gutiérrez, 5 years younger. Gutiérrez with a 3-inch height advantage and then a 2-inch reach advantage. Pedro Munhoz is 1-3 and 1 no contest in his last 5 fights. Had the decision loss against Frankie Edgar. Not sure how he lost that, but the judges thought so. A decision win against Jimmy Rivera. A decision loss to Jose Aldo. A decision loss to Dominic Cruz. And then that no contest against Sean Malley with the eye poke. As far as Chris Gutiérrez, he has 4-0 and a draw in his last 5 fights. Had a draw against Cody Durden. A decision win against Andre Ewell. A split decision win against Felipe Colares. A knockout win against Danat Bakary. And then a knockout win against Frankie Edgar. So yeah, this is going to be a pretty big step up in competition for Chris Gutiérrez, going from a retiring Frankie Edgar, Felipe Colares, Bakary, Ewell, Durden, a 125er, to Pedro Munhoz, who's kind of fought the who's who, Dominic Cruz, O'Malley, Aldo, Rivera, Frankie Edgar, just guys on the top of the division. Chris Gutiérrez has looked really, really good as of late. I think he's made a lot of improvements as well. He's working on that takedown defense, which has kind of hurt him in the past. I don't think he's going to worry about that here, though. I think we're going to get a 15-minute striking fight and a fight that I feel like could play out a little bit close. But, Munhoz is getting up there in age now, 36 years old at bantamweight. I don't like to see that. Gutiérrez, the much younger guy here by 5 years. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, so my thoughts are Chris Gutiérrez by decision here. He's 4.5 years younger. He's got a 2-inch reach advantage. He's 3 inches taller. He's almost as experienced as Pedro Munhoz. He just has half the amount of fights at the UFC level. So really what Pedro Munhoz has here is an absolutely killer guillotine, where if you try to take him down, you really risk going to sleep. Pedro Munhoz has fought the much better brand of competition here, and it's not even close. But everything outside of that, man, Gutiérrez's distance striking numbers are night and day when you compare him to Pedro Munhoz's. Munhoz throws less volume than his opponents, 2.5 less distance strike attempts per minute. Gutiérrez throws 1.2 more than his opponents do. And then Gutiérrez has got 57.6% distance striking accuracy. That is otherworldly. And then you compare it with a 67% distance striking defense. So he's really hard to find. He lands 5.81 distance strikes per minute spent at distance, and he only absorbs 2.91, a positive 2.9 distance striking differential. Talk about a minute winner in the distance exchanges. And then you look at a guy like Pedro Munhoz and you say, well, can he take Gutiérrez down? No, man. Pedro Munhoz has 7 takedowns in 18 UFC fights, and he's only 20% on the attempts that he has made. Pedro Munhoz's fights take place at distance striking range in an 18-fight sample size, almost 200 minutes in the UFC cage, 92% of the time. So guess what? This is a distance striking match, and Pedro's at a 2-inch reach advantage, a disadvantage, a 3-inch height disadvantage. He probably throws more volume than Gutiérrez does at distance, As you see, Munhoz throws 12.44 and Gutiérrez throws 10.1. But Gutiérrez's accuracy and his defense are both so much better than Pedro's. So if I can't count on Munhoz to wrestle here, to win minutes there, I think that Chris is going to pick him apart at range. And as no matter how much Chris lands on Pedro Munhoz, you're not finishing Pedro Munhoz. 28 professional fights, 7 professional losses. He's never once been finished. And the guy's got a brick for a head. And as a matter of fact, he's absorbed 1,146 significant strikes in the UFC and never once been dropped.
Were you joking when you said he got hit by a semi, or did that actually happen?
No, I was kidding.
Oh, okay.
Brady and I were DMing, and I was like, yeah, dude, actually, Pedro Munhoz got run over by a semi when he was 6, and he didn't even cry. But obviously that didn't happen. But that's how durable Pedro Munhoz is.
I mean, it's a believable story with how tough this guy is. But
he's so tough, dude.
Yeah, Gutiérrez, a big favorite, currently sitting around -207. Pedro Munhoz sitting at +177. If you like Gutiérrez, you probably like that decision prop, but BetOnline has it at -115. Yeah, nothing really sticking out here for me. It's going to be probably a pass fight. I think it could play out a little bit closer than this line indicates, but it's hard not to pick the younger Gutiérrez, who's been looking very, very good lately.
Yeah, very good. But, you look at those names, right? Chris Gutierrez's last 5, Cody Durden, Andre Ewell, Felipe Colares, Denard Batgarel, and then a washed-up Frankie Edgar. When Munhoz, it's Edgar a couple years ago, Jimmy Rivera, Jose Aldo, Dominic Cruz, Sean O'Malley. So step up for Chris, but and Chris is about almost 32 years old as well. So it's not like he's some 26-year-old kid going in here against the old lion and Munhoz. He's 4 years younger than Munhoz. Munhoz is 36, which is old for a bantamweight, but it's a step up in competition. We'll see how he handles it.
Yes, sir. All right. Next, we have a interesting fight. We got Ion Cuțelaba going against Tanner Boser. We got Cuțelaba, 29 years old, 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. Boser, 31 years old, 6'2" with a 75-inch reach. Cuțelaba, 2 years younger. It's going to be Boser with a 1-inch height advantage coming down from heavyweight. Tanner Boser is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Rafael Pessoa, a decision loss to Andrei Arlovsky, a decision loss to Alir Latifi, knockout win against OSP, a decision loss to Rodrigo Nascimento. As far as Ion Cuțelaba, he is 1-3 and 1 draw in his last 5 fights. Had that draw against Jacoby, a decision win against Devin Clark, a submission loss to Ryan Spann, Johnny Walker, and then a knockout loss to Kennedy Nzechukwu. Yeah, so I was kind of shocked to see Ion Cuțelaba not get cut after his last matchup, but I think that has to do with, the guy's an exciting fighter, always in very fun fights, win or lose. So I think the UFC kind of wants to keep him around here. Really looking forward to seeing how Tanner Boser looks on the skills, a guy that's fought at heavyweight, coming down to light heavyweight. But yeah, I kind of think it's a tough matchup for Boser, but it's like a tough matchup for the first 5 minutes. So Boser, if he survives the first 5 minutes, he's going to probably win this fight just due to Cuțelaba having about a round of gas. But yeah, Boser, I don't like his takedown defense. He has literally no get-up game, no ground game to speak of. Once he gets taken down, he just kind of lays there, and that's not really going to work against Cuțelaba. So I like Cuțelaba to win this fight in round 1, but if this gets to the second round, probably going to be ripping up that Cuțelaba ticket. I think the under at plus money, under 1.5, could be something to look at. Just because Cuțelaba is not durable, and I think Cuțelaba is going to have a lot of opportunities early to finish Tanner Boser on the mat here. So that's kind of how I'm going to attack it. Maybe look at the Cuțelaba round 1 prop, Boser 2-3. But yeah, I think we get violence here one way or another. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one? Kind of a weird fight.
Yeah, it is. Tanner Boser's, when you watch his tape, his kryptonite is getting taken down and held down. And with Cuțelaba, you got a guy who's got 33 takedowns on 57 attempts. So he's getting his takedowns at a 58% clip. He's averaging 4.7 takedowns per 15 minutes. And he outcontrols his opponents 26% to 15%. And he's winning about 63% of the control time positions that he's in. While Tanner Boser's fights actually stay standing about 80% of the time. So as a result of that, if you look at the distance striking numbers for Boser, they look pretty good, dude. 64% distance striking defense. He's never been knocked down as a heavyweight, which is pretty good. He lands 4.79 and he absorbs 2.52. So at distance, he should easily be the better minute winner, as Boser's 51% accurate and Cuțelaba is only 30% accurate. Cuțelaba blocks punches with his face, 52% distance striking defense, 64% for Tanner. So it seems like a pretty clear fight to me, in that, Cuțelaba's probably going to need to get takedowns in order to win this fight, and Boser's going to have to keep it standing. These guys have a similar amount of experience, similar amount of time in the UFC cage, about 13 more minutes for Cuțelaba on 6 more fights. Both these guys are finishing their wins. I mean, like, Cuțelaba finished 3 of 5 wins. Boser's finished 3 of 4. And Cuțelaba's been finished in 7 of his 8 UFC losses. So, very interesting fight, man. Can I count on Cuțelaba to wrestle for 3 rounds? Probably not. But can we count on Tanner Boser to make 205 pounds when his head weighs like 63 pounds just on its own? You seen that Easter Island that he's got on his shoulders, man? It's a huge head, dude. And I mean, like, I think that's why he's had to be a heavyweight. I think that's why when he gets taken down, he can't get back up. Because when your head's that big, and it's all the way on one side of your body, it makes it really difficult to stand up. I mean, he couldn't even walk till he was 3 years old, from what my sources told me, because he's got such a giant head that anytime you get even just a little bit off of equilibrium when you're standing up, you could fall right over. So he had to deal with that from a very young age, and it shows in his takedown defense and get-up game. And it's going to be a big target to hit on the feet too. I don't know. It's an interesting fight. I don't really even have a pick at this point, but I think that I like Cuțelaba's early finishing equity, and if he doesn't get him out of there, I think Boser's going to be able to land some big shots and potentially get a knockout late.
Yeah. I'm looking at Boser's Instagram. He looks in incredible shape. Incredible. So yeah, maybe he has no problem making light heavyweight. Looks good to me. But we'll have to see on Friday there.
But he wasn't a fat heavyweight, though. I mean, like, he was in good shape as a heavyweight too. So we'll see where that weight does come off of him, and how easy that is for him. But yeah, if it's a good, easy weight cut for him, he should just go down to 205. There's not that much more skill down there.
Yeah, he weighed in.
Just don't pick up the phone if they're trying to give you Caio Bahaio or somebody that's going to wrestle you.
He weighed in 229 his last fight. So
okay, yeah, so he'll get it then. He just needs to dehydrate himself and he'll get it, even if his head really is 70 pounds, and it might be.
Yeah, it might be, but yep, we'll have to see. But yeah, I mean, it should be a good fight. Kind of tempted on the under, because I think both guys are definitely live to finish the other, whether it's Boser on the feet, whether it's Cuțelaba with that ground and pound. And then Cuțelaba round 1 is something you always have to consider, just because that's how he wins more often than not. Plus 250. There we go. Not good enough. Fight doesn't go, is getting smashed as we speak as well. So yeah, I don't know. I would have liked Cuțelaba at plus money. Like, he opened up plus 140. And now he's minus 131, which kind of surprised me. I thought more people might be a little bit lower on Cuțelaba. Like, the guy's on a 3-fight losing skid. But yeah, came on Cuțelaba, and this line's like flipped.
Man, that's weird. I wouldn't think there'd be that much line movement, and I think maybe people are forgetting that Boser's a heavyweight, and that he's moving down. And if he looks good making that weight cut, this could be an easier fight for him than he's had in the past. I mean, imagine dealing with like a black belt like Rodrigo Nascimento with an ass that's got its own orbit. The guy cuts to make 266, and then you get that guy on top of you, rather than a guy like Cuțelaba who's taking people down, but he's not doing a good job of holding them down, right? Mm-hmm. So, yeah, it's an interesting stylistic matchup. Maybe the plus money on Boser is worth a shot, but we'll see where it goes, man.
I think live betting Boser could be even better because there's a good chance he gets his ass whooped in the first round.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, there is too.
Cuțelaba is so good early. He's so good
He,
early.
he's a monster early, and when you have to worry about that wrestling when he's fresh, he's even more dangerous.
Yep. Yep. Should be a good fight there. Should be an interest. All Cuțelaba fights are just very, very entertaining to watch. I will always tune into a Cuțelaba fight no matter what.
Without question.
All right, we'll keep moving on. We have, I think, 3 fights left. We got Dustin Jacoby going against Azamat Murzakanov. We got Dustin Jacoby, 34 years old, 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. Murzakanov, 33 years old, 5'10" with a 71-inch reach. It's going to be Murzakanov 1 year younger. It's going to be Jacoby with a 5-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. Dustin Jacoby is 4-1 in his last 5 fights. A knockout win against Darren Stewart, a decision win against John Allen, a decision win against Mikhail Olazechuk, a knockout win against Da Un Jung, and then a decision win against Khalil Roundtree, but the judges completely screwed that one up. And yes, that one came back to bite me and lost money on that. So that sucked. Murzakanov, he is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. The guy's still undefeated. He had that knockout win against Matheus Shuffle on the Contender Series. I believe that was the first round. He knocked out Tafon Chukwu in the 3rd round, and then he knocked out Devin Clark in the 3rd round as well. This is a fight that I think takes place on the feet. Murzakanov showed some grappling like outside of the UFC. He's able to take guys down. Hasn't really shown that thus far in the UFC. Did take down Tafon, but Tafon popped back up. So I don't think Murzakanov is going to go to that wrestling here. If he does, it might be a mistake, and he might gas out doing so because Jacoby has a good takedown defense, good get-up game. I think we're going to get a striking fight here. And on the feet, Dustin Jacoby, much bigger, much more volume. The volume isn't close. It's probably going to be like 2-1, but Murzakanov does have a lot of power. And I think if Murzakanov does win this fight, it's going to probably be by knockout. I actually like Jacoby in this matchup quite a bit. I think he's going to be the minute winner. The only thing that concerns me is I think this probably goes to decision, and the judges are probably going to screw it up. But I think Jacoby is going to win this fight, probably 30-27. But Murzakanov is going to be live to land a big shot at any time. Jacoby, he has been knocked out before, but I think his last knockout loss was like 2014. Give me Jacoby here. Jacoby probably by decision as well. And yeah, I think he gets it done here. But yeah, the judges scare me, of course. But I can't let the judges get in my head too much. I like Jacoby quite a bit, so I did place a bet on him. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, it's an interesting fight for sure. I like Dustin Jacoby in this spot. When I saw the line at -200, I was like, ooh, that could be a big spot, you know? And, you know, I watched all the tape on Murzakanov today. The dude is dangerous. He's really dangerous, but it's an interesting stylistic matchup here. First of all, you know, you said it earlier, Azamat's 34 like I'm 34. You know, that guy's got as much gray hair at his temples as I do. And, you know, like we were saying, like they showed a picture of him when he won his first tournament at 18. The dude looks like he's 33, you know, when he's 18 years old. If he was American, he'd be buying beer for his buddies when he was 11, you know, and not even having to show an ID. But Jacoby, a lot more experienced and a lot busier. You know, Azamat's only had 12 professional fights in an over 13-year career, while Jacoby, 25 mixed martial arts fights in a 12-year career with some kickboxing mixed in there as well. So Jacoby's going to be the better technical kickboxer here. And Azamat's got a very explosive style on the feet. He's short, but he stays on the balls of his feet. He bounces up and down, and he looks to explode in and out. Catch you coming in, throw a big overhand left because he's a southpaw. And, you know, he just explodes, you know, but he's extremely low volume. And this is one where the stats really do play it out for us. 6.39 distance strike attempts per minute spent at distance is about as low as you're going to see on anybody in the entire UFC. And then over on the other side, you got a very high volume striker in Dustin Jacoby, who's attempting 16.35 distance strike attempts per minute. So he throws 10 more distance strike attempts per minute than Azamat Murzakanov does. So I guess what I'm saying here is it's virtually impossible to picture Azamat Murzakanov winning a decision in this fight without dropping Dustin Jacoby in 2 out of 3 rounds, because there's no way that this fight takes place at distance striking range. And Dustin Jacoby doesn't win the minutes. The question is, can Azamat get it into the clinch? Can he get Dustin Jacoby's back on the mat? And if he can do either of those things, he can win minutes. But outside of that, I kind of see Azamat relegated to only being able to win moments in this fight. He's at a 5-inch reach disadvantage. He's at a 5-inch height disadvantage. He's at an experience disadvantage. He's at a speed disadvantage. And frankly, I don't even know if Azamat Murzakanov actually has a power advantage over Dustin Jacoby. On paper, he does in a much smaller sample size, but there's no doubt who the better kickboxer is here. There's no doubt who the faster kickboxer is here. There's no doubt who has more weapons on the feet. And then, like you said, we saw Azamat going to the wrestling on the regional scene a little bit more. Got a nice win over Andre Muniz, but bottom line is that this guy hasn't been able to wrestle at all in the UFC. He's done good with clinch control, but the wrestling's not there. And Dustin is really good at maintaining range, and he's got great footwork. I think Dustin's just going to style on this guy from a distance and win this fight by decision. He's going to have to mind his P's and Q's. I think he'll definitely have the better conditioning here, as Azamat bouncing up and down on his feet like that style, even when you're not striking, it's why he's so low volume. It's because it's a very energy-centric style to bounce up and down like that, especially when you're like Azamat and you're, not this great explosive athlete. You're really more of just a coiled up, power ball that just explodes when you decide to go for it. But he's so low volume that I think it's going to be Dustin Jacoby by decision here.
Yep, I think so as well. I think for Azamat to win, he's going to have to knock out Jacoby, and Jacoby has a really good chin. So, yeah, this line movement, it kind of baffles me, man. I was getting ready to lay minus 188 on Jacoby, 2 units, minus 188, and then I saw minus 159 there on Bet Online, so I pulled the trigger on that, and it's still there. It's still there. So I'm not sure what's going on. If you like Azamat, you probably take him by like knockout. But yeah,
maybe
I think
finish only prop too.
Well, they're onto it. It's like minus 115.
Okay.
But yeah, I think it should be clear Jacoby in terms of minute winning here. It's just, can Jacoby's chin hold up against a very dangerous Murzakanov? And I think Jacoby has a really good chin. So yeah, I like Jacoby quite a bit, but the line is scaring me a little bit. I'm not sure what's going on here. I did want to address something in the chat because there are lies going on. Broke one of the ultimate rules, laying chalk on women's UFC fighters making their debut. Huge mistake. You've lost your marbles. Me and Weezy both did not lay chalk on Amarim, I think you're talking about. I had the under 2.5 at plus money, and Weezy had the inside the distance, which those were good bets.
Plus 130, yeah, and I almost wanted to just go first round submission at plus 300, or first round win at plus 300 for Amarim, because she had never been out of the first round before. But that's, yeah, you have to find these win conditions do matter, and yeah, she was very close to finishing that, so I don't want to hear it. There's no way to know that she was going to completely gas out after round 1, but it was a possibility.
Yep, for sure. All right, thank you, Mushroom. See, this is why I like Mushroom. Good bets indeed. Yeah, I'll make that. I'd make that bet again. It was so close. I don't know how Sam Hughes got out of those chokes. They were sunk in, 2nd-degree black belt. Shout out to Sam Hughes, but my goodness, I thought it was over multiple occasions.
Yeah, she's tough, man. She's a fun. I like Sam Hughes, and big ups to her. She did everything that she was supposed to do. She knew she had to weather that early storm. She did it. She gutted it out the rest of the fight and was much better conditioned, much more experienced, much more ready for the moment. And she got the job done. Yeah, she was great. Yeah,
she did. Oh,
hey, man, if you're not cheating, you ain't trying, man. It's a fight in there. You do whatever you got to do in order to keep somebody from strangling you.
Yep, she did cheat, but hey, there's nothing we can do about it. All right.
Yeah.
We'll move on though to the co-main event. We have banger here, man. This is probably my favorite fight on the card outside the main event, and that Royval fight I'm looking forward to. We got Quarantillo going against Edson Barboza. We got Billy Q, 34 years old, 5'10" with a 70-inch reach. Barboza, 37 years old, 5'11" with a 75-inch reach. Quarantillo, 3 years younger. It's going to be Barboza with a 1-inch height advantage and a 5-inch reach advantage. Edson Barboza is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. A decision loss to Dan Ige, a decision win against Mac One Americani, a knockout win against Shane Burgos, a knockout loss to Giga Chikadze, and then a decision loss to Bryce Mitchell. Billy Quarantillo, he is 3-2 in his last 5 fights, a knockout win against Kyle Nelson, decision loss against Gavin Tucker, knockout win against Gabriel Benitez, a decision loss against Shane Burgos, and then a knockout win against Alexander Hernandez. Yeah, this is a really good fight here. I'm looking forward to it. Barboza is definitely getting up there in age here. 37 years old. He's taken a lot of damage throughout his career. I think it's starting to show a little bit. Got knocked out in the Giga fight. Got hurt a couple times there. Got dropped in the Bryce Mitchell fight. Like, that was random, but Bryce Mitchell dropped him. And then Billy Quarantillo, he's 34 years old, so it's not like he's some young guy, but he's a younger guy in this matchup. I really like Billy's style. He's a very fun and exciting fighter who's going to go in there, and he's kind of a slow starter, gets hit a little bit, but he gets better and better as the fight goes on. A very, very tough guy. The thing I don't like about Billy Q is his striking defense, 40%. He's eating punches with his face, and that's not the best strategy, but hey, he has a good chin. It works out for him. This is a matchup where I see Barboza probably having a lot of success early. And I might even look at this from like a live betting standpoint, because I think Barboza is going to look like the much, much better fighter early. It's just Billy Q just, breaks guys. He puts it on you, and a lot of these guys can't keep up with that pace. And I'm not sure 37-year-old Barboza is going to be able to keep up with that pace. So I like Billy Q here. I like Billy Q to take over as the fight goes on. And I like him to finish Barboza down the stretch in that late second or third round. So give me Billy Q to get it done. But I don't really want to lay minus 210 on a guy that's just, so hittable. And I think betting live, you're going to get a much better number after that first round, I think. But give me Billy Quarantillo to get it done. Weezy, what are your thoughts on this one here?
Dude, I want to nerd out on these distance striking stats here for a minute for Billy Quarantillo. 11.29 distance strikes landed per minute. I mean, Azamat Murzakanov attempts 6 distance strikes per minute. Attempts. Billy Quarantillo lands 11.3. He attempts 23.82.
Goodness.
I mean, can you imagine that kind of volume? No wonder he breaks dudes. Because it's not like Billy's not getting hit. Billy's got a 43.6% distance striking defense. That's pitiful. He's eating 10.5 distance strike attempts per minute. But the thing is, he's landing even more than that. And the fact that he's still there after you hit him 10 times a minute for 8 straight minutes, that's when that switch flips in your brain and you say, if I just let this guy knock me out right now, that's 7 more minutes that I won't have to be in the cage with this maniac. Because that's exactly what he is. Billy Quarantillo is a maniac. This just broke my spreadsheet, 23.82 distance strike attempts per minute. I mean, we can just go up and down the sheet here. Dustin Jacoby, 16.35, and he's super high volume. Guys like Cuțelaba, 12-9 for him and Boser. Gutiérrez is a bantamweight, right? He weighs significantly less than Quarantillo does, and he's only throwing 10.1 distance strike attempts per minute. Guys, spazzes like Clay Guida are only throwing 13.19. So, yeah, this guy Quarantillo, if he can trust his chin and you're breakable, he's going to beat you, dude. But, like, when he runs into a guy like Shane Burgos, who is like just as durable as him, but who's also longer and hits harder, that's where he runs into problems here. And Edson Barboza has been knocked out 3 times at the UFC level. He throws the same amount of volume as his opponents. He lands a little more. he's got 10 knockdowns in 22 UFC fights. So obviously Edson still has that power, but he definitely prefers to kind of like have his opponent not march him down to not stay in his face. I think he likes it when his opponent fucks off for 45 to 60 seconds at a time and lets him breathe. But you don't get that opportunity with Billy Quarantillo. Definitely one of my favorite fighters. I love guys who use pace and volume and durability as weapons, and Billy Quarantillo fits squarely and perfectly right into that category. And when you're fighting with that style of pace, God, I hate it when the opponent is older than that guy, because, boy, this is when you realize, do I really want to be doing this anymore? You know, Quarantillo is the kind of guy who retires people. And Edson Barboza is 37 years old with 33 professional fights, 22 of them at the UFC level, and he's absorbed 10 losses in those 22 fights. So, you know, Quarantillo is the kind of guy that can maybe make him hang up his gloves at the end of this fight.
Yeah, I didn't like how Barboza looked in like the second and third round against what's his face? Who was it? Let me see here. Against, why am I forgetting this? Against Giga. Against Giga. Like, Barboza looked like he was breaking against Giga. Like, looked tired in that third round. So Giga was kind of breaking him, and he did break him. He knocked him out early third. I feel like Billy can do the same thing, but if not worse, because Billy just puts on such a pace and drowns people with that volume. So yeah, I like Billy Q here quite a bit. It's just he's going to get hit in the face early on, and he's going to get hit in the face hard, but he's tough. He's durable. He should be able to get through that and take over as the fight goes on. So curious to see where the line's at. That's not terrible. Billy Q opened up minus 155. He's minus 166. Edson Barboza opened up plus 135. He's currently plus 146. Was kind of expecting a wider line on that. But yeah, I'm going to refresh. Yeah, it's only minus 166. I'm going to take a look at these late round Billy Q props. You can never go wrong with them. Billy Q round 2, Billy Q round 3. I think they're going to be something to really look at this week. Of course, bet online with trash props. Billy Q round 2 plus 575. Billy Q round 3 only plus 700. So you're going to have to wait till FanDuel and DraftKings get stuff out. But yeah, round 2, round 3, Billy Q, sign me up. And we also talked about that over 1.5. On probability as a really good parlay piece, just because Billy Q, it takes him a little bit to get going. And I think if he does win this fight, it is going to be late after he breaks Edson Barboza.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I like the over 1.5 here at around minus 225. I like Billy Quarantillo round 2 or round 3. Those are always great looks. And when you find those distance striking numbers, as terrifying as they are, also consider the fact that Billy Quarantillo's fights take place in control time positions 60% of the time.
Wild.
So can you imagine absorbing that kind of pace, you know, for 13 or 14 minutes on the feet? There's no way, you know, and that's why Quarantillo breaks dudes. But the thing is, like we said, he's getting taken down. His fights are taking place in control time positions almost 60% of the time. This fight's going to be taking place standing up most of the time. So that pace is going to be even more of a weapon because there won't be as much grappling going on here. Edson Barboza, over a huge sample size, only controls his opponent 4% of the time. So this is going to be out there, and Billy's going to be marching this dude down.
Yep, for sure. I like it. I like it a lot. All right. Main event time. If you guys have not smashed the like button, smash the like button for us. Also subscribe here to Pub Sports Radio. Me and Weezy typically go live every Sunday for some stat diggers. We had to take the Sunday off because of Easter, but don't ever mind doing some Monday shows. They're always fun as well. All right. Max Holloway, Arnold Allen. We'll start with Max Holloway here, 31 years old, 5'11" with a 69-inch reach. Arnold Allen, 29 years old, 5'8" with a 70-inch reach. We got Allen 2 years younger. That's going to be Holloway with a 3-inch height advantage and a 1-inch reach disadvantage. Max Holloway is 2-3 in his last 5 fights. Only losses come to Alexander Volkanovski. The first fight was a close-ish decision. I scored it for Volkanovski. The second fight was a very close decision. I actually scored it for Holloway. The next fight was a decision win against Calvin Kattar, a decision win against Yair Rodriguez, and then a clear-cut Alexander Volkanovski decision, where I thought Volkanovski was actually going to finish Holloway. But no, Max Holloway, his next level toughness and durability continued to hold up in that fight. Arnold Allen is 5-0 in his last 5 fights. The guy's undefeated in the UFC, has not lost in a very, very long time. His lone loss comes a while ago by decision. But yeah, he's 5-0 in his last 5 fights. Gilbert Melendez decision win, Nick Lentz decision win, Yusuf decision win, knockout win against Dan Hooker, and then that knockout win against Calvin Kattar, where Calvin Kattar got hurt in the early second round. But yeah, prior to that, he was looking good in the first round against Kattar, won that first round as well, but really wanted to see what Allen looked like in that third, fourth, and fifth round against someone in Kattar who's going to throw a lot of volume. So didn't learn a ton about Arnold Allen in that loss, but he did look pretty good up until then. Yeah, really looking forward to this fight. Money's pouring in on Max Holloway, which kind of surprised me a little bit just because people are very, very high on Arnold Allen. But yeah, Max Holloway, his volume is next level. You know, this guy's the volume king, landing 7.34 significant strikes per minute. Arnold Allen's a low volume guy. His volume's looked a lot better as of late, but you know, prior to the Kattar and the Hooker fights, his volume was always very, very low. Like in the Sadiq Yusuf fight, he barely landed anything winning that fight. But it looks like Allen's starting to put it together a little bit. But man, it's a very, really, really big step up of competition here for Arnold Allen. Weezy, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this fight here. Should be a very, very fun main event, as all Max Holloway fights are.
Yeah, I mean, Arnold Allen is only 2 years younger than Max Holloway, but he's got a lot less miles on the tires, 10 less professional fights, about 250 less minutes in the pro cage, 12 less UFC fights, about 200 and almost 50 minutes left in the UFC cage in comparison to Max Holloway, who spent 367 minutes in the pro cage or in the UFC cage in 22 fights. So yeah, you know, you got guys that, you know, you got a former champion here in Holloway, and you got a guy in Allen who's never lost at the UFC level, who's 10-0, and who's been a really good minute winner. If you look at the grappling stats for Allen, he's only gotten 11 takedowns in 10 fights, but he averages just a little bit more than 1 per fight. He allows 1.47 per fight, but he wins 48% of the control time positions that he's in, despite the fact that his opponents have attempted 51 takedowns and Arnold's only attempted 22. And then Arnold's got 71% distance striking defense. So this guy has been very hard to find on the feet. Max Holloway, 45% accuracy, Arnold Allen, 41. Max Holloway, a little bit easier to hit at a 58% distance striking defense. And Allen's going to have a 1-inch reach advantage here. I was surprised that we saw Max Holloway have to grapple in order to beat Yair Rodriguez. That was the first time that we had seen Max Holloway wrestle his way to a victory, I think, really ever in the UFC. We saw Conor McGregor out-grapple Max Holloway and win a bunch of minutes on the ground against him. So, Holloway is a great boxer. He's got good takedown defense. He doesn't lose minutes on the ground. He keeps fights standing. He throws a lot of volume. He's got great durability. So if he can win minutes, if he can win more minutes than you, he's probably going to win the decision because you're not going to be knocking him out. And no matter how hard you hit him, he's not really even going to react because his durability is just next level. Arnold Allen has got 3 knockdowns in 10 UFC fights. He's knocked out 2 of his 10 UFC opponents. So if he doesn't have that death touch, you're not knocking out Max Holloway in 5 rounds. So it's a very interesting fight. I do need to look into this one a little bit more. I haven't gotten to it yet. But obviously, Holloway has fought the better brand of competition. He's beaten the better brand of competition. He's lost to the absolute legends of the sport, guys that are, Arnold Allen hasn't fought that caliber of opponent yet. So he's just seen so much more. This is Arnold Allen, only his second 5-round fight, while we've seen Max Holloway in his UFC tenure be in how many 5-round fights? I've got him with 12 of them. So Max Holloway, 12 fights scheduled for 5. Arnold Allen, 1 fight scheduled for 5. It's a huge step up. And Arnold Allen has been more of a minute winner than a moment winner. Well, now he's facing a guy who is literally a champion at the UFC level as a minute winner. Max is still only 31 years old. I think Max still has a lot of tread on the tires here. I see why the money's coming in on him. I mean, obviously I don't have any bets yet because I haven't fully researched the fight yet, but this is a very good main event, a very good matchup, and we're finally going to find out, where Arnold Allen is at this point in his career, because he's not just going to go out there and spark mark, Max Holloway in the first round. Nobody can do that. So it's a great main event.
Yeah, it definitely is. Holloway opened up -145. It was around -150 for a while. Currently -180. And then Arnold Allen is currently sitting at +155 there. Mushroom in the chat asking about maybe an attritional finish in the third, fourth, and fifth round. I might take a look at those props just due to the fact that we have seen Allen slow down bad in that Yusuf fight in that third round, and he's never seen a fourth and fifth. And, Max Holloway is a guy that's just going to put so much volume on you. So maybe we do see Allen slow down in the fourth and fifth. I was also going to look at maybe like the 4 or 5 decision on FanDuel as well. Not sure where they're going to have that at, though. But that's kind of how I'm going to attack it. But, yeah, I like Holloway here, but I don't know. I guess Allen's just been burning me nonstop. So,
yeah, me too. Me too, dude. Bet against him against Hooker, bet against him against Cater. But shit, man, I thought Yusuf was going to beat him. I mean, yeah, I haven't gotten any Arnold Allen fights right in a while.
Yeah, but this is it's going to be a good test for him, a very good test for Allen.
Yep, absolutely. And a great main event on a great card here in Kansas City. Stand up. This is a great card from top to bottom. The prelims are great. The early prelims are great. The main card is great. I'd just like to see maybe Boser versus Cuțelaba put as like the headlining prelim. And I want to see Royval versus Nicolau on that main card. But other than that, I've got no complaints.
Yeah, I think we just need to cancel the Cummings Herman fight. And there's still time to do so. Maybe they'll.
I kind of want to see the fat Cummings in there at 205. I think it'll be great laughs.
Maybe Cummings will look so bad on the scales that they might just cancel the fight. Like the commission's going to say, no, dude, no. Come on.
Like they're going to take a picture and it's going to explode the room because he's so white and so fat, that it just like the flash bounces off of it and everybody's rendered blind. And they're like, we cannot put this man under the bright lights in front of an entire crowd in Kansas City for fear of blinding dozens of people and then having lawsuits, So, yeah, it's going to be wild, man. There's great fights on this card, and then there's fights that are going to be spectacularly bad, but it should be spectacular one way or another from beginning to end, Brady. And let's make some money while we're watching it.
It's going to be a good one. But yeah, 2 hours in, right on time. If you guys have not, smash the like button, subscribe here to Pub Sports. Weezy, let the people know where they can find you and your plans for this week with some content.
Well, you can find me at the dinner table here in about 3 minutes as I smell some food cooking here in the house, which is going to be nice. You can find me tomorrow night, 10 o'clock Central Time, for Just a Tip with Uncle Weezy on my YouTube channel. Come check that out. I'll give you all my track bets. We'll finish with Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And as always, we'll break down all 14 of the fights from a stats and tape study perspective. And then Wednesday on Pub Sports Radio, you can find me and Brady and Monk and Gordo for the DFS show. And I'll probably do an Ask Weezy this week on Wednesday night as well. So, yeah, looking forward to the rest of this week's content. Looking forward to finishing up researching this card and finding ways to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Kansas City. Thank you guys all for joining us tonight on Pub Sports Radio.
Yep. Thank you guys for joining us on a Monday. You can follow me on Twitter, DFS_numbers, Instagram, DFS by the numbers. I did post a main event breakdown going into a little bit further detail on the Holloway Allen fight. And then I'm going to be getting out my full card prediction sometime tomorrow. I still got to look into that Denise Gomes fight a little bit more and then the Zell Huber fight a little bit more. But yeah, about ready for all that. Last question before we get out of here. Weezy, what is for dinner tonight?
Oh, I don't know. It smells good, man. It smells like there's some Latino flavors going through the room right now, but I don't know. Maybe some black bean soup. I don't know. We're going to have to find out. I'm really looking forward to it. The stomach is growling. Just like I'm hungry for flapjacks every week betting on the UFC. I'm hungry for dinner here on Monday night after Pub Sports Radio, 2 hours of Stat Diggers.
Let's go. Let's go. All right, guys. Good luck. UFC Kansas City should be a fun card. Enjoy it, and we'll talk to you all very soon. See you.